Yo, I'm Hellhound.
Dr. Gutts.
And welcome to Into the Pit. And today we're going to count down our top 5 favorite Michael Bolton albums.
Number 1.
Yeah.
I don't know any Michael Bolton albums.
Me neither. Okay, let's just do thrash metal.
Let's do that.
Do something we know. Alright, so top 5 favorite thrash metal albums, but we're going to put a little twist on it. We're not going to name the same band twice, so only one album per band. And we're also not going to mention any albums from the big 4. That means Metallica, Slayer, Megadeth, and Anthrax are all out. We already know those are all the best, so why even... We already talked about it ad nauseum, so you're not going to see Master of Puppets, or Show No Mercy, or Rain in Blood, or Peace Sells, or Rust in Peace, or Among the Living, or Spreading Disease, or any of that.
And also, another caveat we're adding is only old school albums.
Yeah.
No modern thrash.
Yeah, no thrash revival, no newer thrash bands, all like the 80s.
That being said, we will get to a countdown
eventually
of new school thrash bands.
Absolutely.
Today, it's all about the old school. All about the old school, not the big 4.
Yeah. So, because, we already talked about those bands. They're too obvious. We talked about them ad nauseum. It's been done to death. We already know those are the best, so why even beat a dead horse? Alright, so,
let's get right into it.
Starting with my number 5, best thrash metal band of all time, not counting the big 4, would be Under the Influence by Overkill. It was I had to put something by Overkill in this list somewhere. It was a very hard choice between this and Years of Decay and Horoscope. But even some of their newer albums like Immortalis and Ironbound I think are pretty good. They also Feel the Fire, their debut album as well. Overkill's great. Bobby Blitz is one of my favorite thrash vocalists of all time, right up there with Chuck Billy and Joey Belladonna. Dee Verney is also a great bass player.
Great backup yeller of inaudible words.
Grunts and noises. Yeah. They've always had a good lineup. They always had great guitarists and drummers as well. Overkill is definitely one of the best thrash bands. I think that's
absolutely.
I think everybody can agree on that. And Avenged Sevenfold stole their awesome logo with a
What do you
skull
mean?
with
They definitely
wings.
stole that from Avenged Sevenfold.
Of course they did. What was I thinking? But yeah, I'd say Under the Influence by Overkill. It's definitely my number 5 for obvious reasons. Great songs like Shred. I mean, that's just like a thrash anthem.
Absolutely.
And once you put this album in, it opens with that awesome shredding riff.
Imagine that.
Yeah. You just know you're in for something special. You know you're in for a treat. And we got Never Say Never,
my favorite,
from the Gutter.
Yeah, my favorite song on the album, Hello from the Gutter.
Yes.
That has become like an Overkill staple. I've seen them live twice. They've played it both times. That's just such a fantastic song, and it really embodies what Overkill is. They're that straight from the street thrash metal. They have that New York vibe, and like Hello from the Gutter kind of embodies that whole style in general.
Absolutely. And I gotta praise Bobby Blitz Ellsworth once more in that he sounds like a typical thrash metal vocalist, and that he's like, kind of a dirty, unclean sound to his vocals, but he can also hit the high notes as well, and he can kind of develop into the high shrieks. So that's kind of a wide vocal range. He sounds like a kind of a Halford Dickinson type sometimes, and he could do the more again, the more distorted grunts and stuff, the more like typical thrash vocals.
And he sings with a New York accent, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, so gotta give him props for that. So yeah, That's my number 5, Under the Influence by Overkill.
And my number 5 is going to have to be Annihilation of Civilization by Evil Dead. Now, Evil Dead's a cool band.
Great name.
Yes, their follow-up to this I wasn't too big a fan of, but Annihilation of Civilization is an incredible album, start to finish. Opens up with FCI The Awakening, which is one of the coolest songs ever written, in my opinion. It's so intense and it's so heavy, and mostly because of, like, the transitions. The transitions make that song. Like, the transitions from when he says, nothing on earth can save you from the awakening, to the next, like, kind of thrash break riff is just incredible. And, I mean, this album is just so good from start to finish. The title track, Annihilation of Civilization, is killer. I really, really love it. I think my favorite song on the album is Future Shock.
Oh, yeah.
I love that song. That's actually the first song I ever heard by Evil Dead. Kind of flipping through like YouTube-related videos, going down the rabbit hole, and kind of stumbled upon Future Shock, and it's stuck with me ever since. I can't praise it enough. It's so good. If you haven't checked it out, you definitely should. I know they're not a more known thrash band, but it's a thrash band that I think more people should know, because this album is so good. They're a little
overlooked, a little underrated. Great band, great album. I definitely need to get my hands on that someday. I don't have that album. I need to.
Yeah, absolutely.
However.
Absolutely.
Alright, so my number 4 would have to be Beneath the Remains by Sepultura. Back when Sepultura was awesome.
Back when they were Sepultura.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, back before Max Cavalera left and all that. It was a very hard choice between this, Arise, and Chaos AD. And hell, I even love their first two albums, Morbid Visions and Schizophrenia, but I think those are a little more death metal.
Yeah.
So I want to pick one of their straight up thrash metal albums. And after some tough, some critical thinking, I went with Beneath the Remains. Again, very hard choice between this and some of their others, but yeah, the title track and Inner Self, Stronger Than Hate, Mass Hypnosis, Slaves of Pain, Lobotomy, Primitive Future, all great tracks. I really don't think there's a terrible track on this album. There's not really any tracks that I skip over. There's no filler. There's no, there's nothing like that. They're all really good. And it seems like this could almost be like a greatest hits album, if not for, some of their other albums having some really great songs on it as well.
Yeah.
But I think this one's the most consistently good. There might be, like, songs on the, as I said, Arise and Chaos ID that might be better than some of the songs here. But again, I think this is the most consistent album they put out. And then all the tracks are good. There's nothing forgettable. It's very highly memorable. And I guarantee it'll stick with you after you listen to this album when you're like, going about your daily life working or going to school or whatever you're doing. You're going to have these songs stuck in your head, which is a testament to how great Sepultura truly was before they got Garrett Green and became a whole different band.
It's the quintessential Max Cavalera album.
Absolutely.
If that makes sense. Like,
in a lot of
Max
ways,
Cavalera has 122 bands at this point.
Yeah.
And, like, all of them kind of boil back to Beneath the Remains.
Absolutely.
It's, like, the quintessential, like, riff heavy, fast, incredibly, like, thick, like, chunky riffs, his awesome vocals, his cool vocal patterns. He's got really cool patterns with his vocals he does, where it's not just a straightforward singing. He has, like, he breaks words up really cool.
And he actually wasn't the original singer. They had a guy named Sanjeev, I don't know. And he was just the rhythm guitarist. And when that guy left, he said, I'm just going to try doing vocals. And I'm glad he did, because he has an awesome voice.
And I think,
very powerful.
I think I like
Very
Arise
aggressive.
slightly more than Beneath the Remains.
Yeah.
But that's...
It's a close one. It's a very close one.
They're both so good.
Because Arise has dead embryonic cells on it.
Yeah, and the song Arise.
Yeah.
And Desperate Cry.
Yes.
Desperate Cry is one of my favorite songs.
That's the one with the cover of Orgasmatron by Motorhead, too, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. That's awesome. That's a very good cover. Yeah, Mike Silver is great. Igor Cavalera is a great drummer. Andreas Kisser is a great guitarist. Yeah, it's really a shame that there even exists a band calling themselves Sepultura now. They're Sepultura in name only.
Yeah.
And Soulfly, Cavalera Conspiracy, every band he's done after this, he's never quite achieved the same success they did with Sepultura.
That
it's never
being
quite been the
said,
same.
if this new Cavalera Conspiracy album is as good as the first single they released, Insane, then this new Cavalera Conspiracy album has a chance.
It'll be the closest thing to old school Sepultura
that
you'll
song,
ever get.
Insane, is just that. It's insane. It's really
hell yeah.
good, and I have high hopes for this.
I think Cavalera Conspiracy is really good. I like them a lot better than Soulfly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Honestly.
I think they have potential, and I think once they hit that potential, we might get an old school Sepultura sound, which would be killer.
And Sepultura is like, what, the only metal band from Brazil? Or only thrash metal band from Brazil, at least?
Yeah, I mean, like, they're like the only like big one. I mean, I'm sure there's more.
I'm sure there is, but yeah, Sepultura, number 4.
So my number 4 would be Boneless Christian by Coven.
And we just listened to that right before we made this video, and it was freaking slays. They're awesome. They have a great sense of humor.
Not the psychedelic rock Coven. This is the thrash metal Coven. They're actually back now under the name Coven 6669, which is a song off of their first album, Blessed is the Black. But awesome. So I had to go with Boneless Christian as my favorite because I think it's overall the most consistent album they have. Plus, it has much better guitar tones, drum tones, bass tones, just overall sound than their other albums. It's still hilarious. It has like songs like Satanic as Hell, Fucking a Nun. It's got Christ Cycle, Reaming the Pope, The Master's Tool. Like, it's a funny album.
Iron Dick.
Iron Dick's on Blessed is the
Blessed
is the Black, yeah. But like they're such a good band because like they keep a sense of humor about it while still being incredibly heavy.
They don't take themselves too seriously,
absolutely.
Like bands like Slayer and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. But they still manage to keep it like intense and heavy at the same time. Like, these songs are brutal. Like, very heavy, very fast, very thrash metal, very aggressive. But the lyrics are just so ridiculous and over the top. It's good stuff. It'll keep you laughing.
It's hilarious.
If you're if you're not upset over things, it'll keep you laughing.
If you're not butthurt, if you're not easily offended. Or,
it's incredible. It's so good. The title track, Boneless Christian, is literally about them having a picnic. And bringing a Christian and eating him.
You bring the chips, I'll bring the Christian.
You bring the chips, I'll bring the Christian. Like, it's so good. Like, front to back, this album's just killer. The first time I heard it, I was in tears laughing. But it's not just a funny album, it's also just a good album. And that's why it managed to make my top 5 thrash list, which is no easy task. I had a list of 20, 30 albums.
It was really hard
coming into this and narrowed it down to 5. It was very tough. But this album is so good overall, it had the staying power to make my top 5, which is saying a lot with how much I love thrash metal and how much the albums in thrash metal mean to me, that this album was able to stick into the top 5 for me.
And they can be serious when they want to be too, so it's not all just, it's not all like silly
it's good stuff.
But it's hilarious. I like bands that have a good sense of humor, kind of like Anthrax,
Absolutely. Don't take themselves too seriously.
Yeah, exactly. Alright, so at number 3 would be none other than Creator, Pleasure to Kill. And again, like I said with the other albums I mentioned already, it was a very hard choice between this, Terrible Certainty, Endless Pain, Coma of Souls, Extreme Aggression. So many great albums. Millie Petroza and Jürgen Winter Real are both like heroes of mine. Like they're both so iconic. They're just legends. And this was during the time when Jürgen Real, the drummer, was still doing vocals. On the first album, him and Millie Petroza switched off. They both did like 5 songs, I think, each doing
like
vocals,
that,
5 or 6 songs each doing vocals. And it was and he sang less and less on each album. But this one, Riot of Violence, is one of the best songs, and Jürgen Real does the vocals.
Yeah, I love Riot of Violence.
Yeah, exactly. And Creator, they're just so aggressive. They're so heavy. They play so fast. They're great. Flag of Hate. All my CDs are in another case. That's why this is empty. But I love bands that have like 2 vocalists. And Millie Petroza and Jürgen Real both have such different voices. Millie Petroza has kind of the more high pitched screeches, kind of the more raspy hiss.
Yeah, that's what I was going to get on. He has that hiss.
Yeah,
it's a very, very iconic hiss he has on his voice that you know when Millie's singing.
Yeah, and Jürgen Reel's vocals are kind of more guttural, more growls. They're kind of a little more like low. And kind of more like grunts and stuff. I think it's an awesome, it's awesome contrast between the two. I think it's a great idea when a band has 2 singers.
Absolutely.
I wish that he hadn't stopped singing. I think on the next album, Terrible Certainty, he only did vocals on like 1 or 2 songs, and he just sang less and less in each album. Now he just plays drums and that's it. But I think it was great when they had 2 vocalists, because him and Petroza.
Actually, I've seen them live a few times. And I
know he sings Riot of Violence still live.
I've never seen him sing until the last time I saw them. He sang Riot of Violence. He sang Back Up on Flag of Hate.
Oh, good.
Yeah, he sang actually.
Maybe he started to sing again, kind of like Bill Steele from Carcass.
He sang a good bit last time I saw him, which was really cool.
Oh, yeah, good. Yeah, I wish they
had
go
this
back to
big
that.
drum riser. He was actually above everyone else. It was kind of cool.
A great drummer as well.
Absolutely.
And he that'd be great if he went back to. I love the dual vocal style they had, and I know Petroza's a great guitarist as well. In addition to doing vocals, and so they have a few albums where he was the sole guitar player, I think. And some of the best solos I've ever heard in metal. It's pretty cool that he can, he's the lead vocalist and the lead guitarist, kind of like Thomas Warrior from Celtic Frost.
Yeah, some of their newer albums, the solos that they pull off are just next level.
Absolutely,
so melodic. It's just incredible stuff. Creator's such a good band. Like I love Creator.
Oh, me too.
Pleasure to Kill
my
is just
top 10.
one of their big staple albums. So
it's a testament to how great they are.
So,
they are amazing.
My number 3 is Product of Society by Defiance. Now, this band, again, a little more underground. They have a very, very, I want to say a weak guitar tone. It's very kind of frail and more stringy and less distortion, which typically is meh. Some old thrash bands didn't have the best equipment, and this kind of shows that. But it also shows how good the music is, that it still works with everything. This album is a 10 out of 10 for me. It's so good from start to finish. Opens up with The Fault, which is an amazing song about an earthquake and trying to escape this earthquake. It's one of those albums that when you first hear it, it'll stick with you forever. There's a song called Hypothermia, has my favorite guitar riff of all time to open it up. It's so cool, and it just everything on the album works. The vocals, the drums, the bass, the fills, the stops, the transitions, everything is just perfect from start to finish. And the album cover has Saul from the Goonies like coming out of a box, which is pretty cool. It's just it's so good. Again, a little more underground, so some people might not have heard of it. If you haven't, please look it up. Really, really, really good stuff. And I think you all will definitely like it if you're a fan of thrash metal in general. Like I said, the guitar tone's a little bit weak, but that doesn't take away from the album at all. And the riffs and the songwriting is spot on. So it makes everything work, and that doesn't even matter in the end of the day.
Hell yeah. Great choice. So we're at number 2 now?
Number 2.
All right, number 2 would have to be, for me, The New Order by Testament, and I know I'm starting to sound like a broken record, but again, it was a hard choice between this and The Legacy, Practice What You Preach, Souls of Black, and they have so many great albums. I really don't dislike any of their albums, except maybe Demonic, that period where Alex Skolnick, who's my favorite guitarist, when he left briefly, he's like one of the best guitarists ever, in thrash or otherwise. He can do anything. He even plays jazz. He's right up there with Tony Iommi and Andy LaRocque and Marty Friedman and Randy Rhoads and just all of them. He's just insane, man. Like man, is he good. But yeah, The New Order. This is their sophomore album. Very, very good. Chuck Billy is also probably my second favorite thrash metal vocalist next to Joey Belladonna from Anthrax. He's really good. He has a very wide range. He's even like bordered on death metal growls a little bit. Some of his vocals sound a little more death metal in some of their later like their 90s albums. Chuck Billy's just great. Eric Peterson's a great rhythm guitarist. They've always had a steady, a very solid lineup.
Always, no matter what.
Yeah.
Over lineup changes and everything, they always have like a top-notch lineup.
And I think now they have Steve DiGiorgio on bass and Gene Hoglan on drums.
Yes, it's the rhythm section from individual.
Yeah, I mean that's like a super group right there. Combined with Alex Skolnick and Chuck Billy, that's a super group essentially.
Eric Peterson's still there too.
Awesome. So. Yeah, and he's awesome. Yeah, The New Order's great. It's got Eerie Inhabitants, The New Order, Trial by Fire, Into the Pit,
Well, oh man. Disciples of the Watch is probably my favorite song on the album.
Yes, I think
good.
my favorite is probably The Preacher. I love the high pitched vocals on that. The Preacher, that's awesome. And that opening riff, that's just so freaking good. Cool. It gives me chills every time I hear it. They're so good. They're just. Yeah, their name's just perfect. They're a testament to thrash metal.
This was another album
amazing.
That was this close in and out of my list. It was between this and Practice What You Preach.
Yeah, no doubt.
And again, I had to kind of shorten it to 5, so I couldn't fit everything I wanted to.
Choice,
it was so hard.
This was in and out of my list.
This could easily be number 1 on either list. Cause
Absolutely,
it's so good. Like
absolutely.
When it gets down to like old school thrash metal, some of it is just so good. It's like hard to rank. So we're doing the best we can, trying to put these in here. But man, Testament, New Order, such a killer album.
Absolutely.
And obviously, it's where we got the namesake of our show, Into the Pit. So I mean, it
definitely counts for something.
Absolutely.
And I think that I know they're very, very well known. And when you think of thrash metal, they're one of the first bands you think. But I still think they're a little underrated. A lot of elitists, like the more elitist listeners, dismiss them as a Metallica clone, which I don't see at all. Get that at all, no. And even so, I mean, if you're going to be like a band, Metallica, the early Metallica is a good band to be like, but I think that they stayed more consistent over the years. They have more great albums than Metallica does.
Absolutely.
By far. I mean, again, the only album I really find myself not listening to very much is Demonic, and even then, that's got a few tracks on it. Yeah. Same with Low. That's got some really good songs. So yeah, Testament, you really can't go wrong with them at all. And,
absolutely.
Again, just great, talented members, great songs, amazing band.
For sure. And now I think it would be a very good time to get into some honorable mentions.
Yes, I agree. Did you say your number 2 already?
No, but we'll get to that in a moment.
Yeah, you're right. All right, yeah. Okay, let's get the obvious ones out of the way. Okay, we all know Kill 'Em All, Ride the Lightning, Master of Puppets.
And again, those weren't here because our caveat is no Big Four.
It's not too obvious, Rest in Peace, you blah, blah, blah. Show No Mercy, Hell Awaits. We're in Blood. We all know these. We knew this is coming. I had to at least name drop them. It is a thrash movie. Yeah, Spreading the Disease, Among the Living by Anthrax, which I think is another kind of underrated band. Despite being part of the Big Four, I still think they get a lot of unfair crap. Fabulous Disaster by Exodus.
Yeah, I love that album.
It's probably my favorite album of the Steve Souza albums. It's close on Tempo of the Damned, though.
Absolutely.
Then, the other Testament albums like The Legacy and Practice What You Preach, both really good. Both great. Terrible Certainty by Creator. That almost made my list. In fact, I actually changed this to Pleasure to Kill.
So good.
It was a very tough one, yeah. Horoscope by Overkill, which I said, that was another
That's my
personal in and out of my list.
Overkill album.
Yeah.
It has like Bare Bones.
You're not wrong.
Brothers.
You're not wrong on that.
Oh,
It's a very, very great album. Yeah, Arise and KSAD by Sepultura. They almost made the list. Darkness to Sins by Dark Angel. I'm sorry we're not really going in depth with
another
these.
Gene Hoglan.
Yes, oh gosh,
project.
he makes this band so great. This is when they had Don Doty on vocals before he was replaced by Ron Reinhardt. I like the Don Doty era way better.
Yeah.
These first two albums are good. Swallowed in Black by Sadist. Steve DiGiorgio, phenomenal bass player. Act 3 by Death Angel.
Anything but Death Angel.
Yeah, pretty much. Alice in Hell by Annihilator. Sorry. And Agent Orange by Sodom.
Agent Orange.
Eternal Devastation by Destruction, this is on a double thing with a Mad Butcher EP. For some reason they had the cover on the back. I don't know. I don't know whose idea that was. And I know it's debatable whether Celtic Frost is thrash metal or not, but I think they're thrashy enough to at least consider them an honorable mention. Yeah, Martin Eric Ain, the bass player, he died recently, which really sucks. I did Rest in Peace video. Check that out if you want. Yeah, I think they're mostly like proto black metal or speed metal.
Proto black speed metal.
Yeah, even death metal sometimes.
Some thrashy elements.
Yeah, but they definitely have, they have thrash elements. So I think I can consider this a thrash album as well. But it didn't make my top 5 only because they're not straight up thrash. If they were, this would have been number 5. So yeah, and also Epidemic by Violence by Demolition Hammer, Spectrum of Death by Morbid Saint, Zombie Attack by Tankard, Heavy Metal Maniac by Exciter, Handle with Care by Nuclear Assault, and Eternal Nightmare by Violence.
Yeah, which, the guitar players became Machine Head, essentially.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like, it's incredible. Like, Phil DeMille and Rob Flynn, killer guitar players.
Yeah, for sure.
And, yeah, all those albums are phenomenal albums. Again, we just want to do old school, so, kept the new school out. We will get to that, 100%.
For sure.
But, yeah.
I'm sorry we didn't go in depth with these honorable mentions to talk about what are great, but we don't want this video to be 2 hours long, so...
So,
sorry.
Now, the reason we did the honorable mentions right there is because my number 2 is the same as his number 1.
And that would be Bonded by Blood by Exodus. I despise this censored cover. It pisses me off every time I see it. The cover should look like this.
Yeah.
Not
Absolutely.
this.
Yeah, that's trash.
Yeah.
But the album, however, not trash.
No, not at all.
Every
thrash.
single song, every single one
every track,
is a masterpiece.
And I mean every track.
Not just a good song, is a masterpiece.
And this is the only studio album they did with Paul Bailoff, the original singer, before he was replaced by Steve Souza and then later died in a car accident. Very tragic. Rest in peace.
This is literally a greatest hits album.
Yeah.
It's stupid how good this album actually is when you think about it. Every single song is a perfect song. I mean, you have Bonded by Blood, you have Exodus, you have Piranha, which is my personal favorite song by him. You have Strike of the Beast,
A Lesson in
No
Violence,
Love, A Lesson in
and then
Violence.
There Were None,
it's just
Delivers to Evil.
It's so good. Every single song is 100% memorable. Some of the most memorable songs, and not just thrash metal, but metal in general.
Great riffs, great solos, great songwriting. And I know that a lot of people say Paul Bailoff's technically not a great singer. He doesn't have a wide range. But his voice is so freaking thrash. He's like, when I think of thrash metal, I think of him. He lived and breathed thrash. He was metal. He had some of the best frontman skills, some of the best showmanship, some of the best stage presence I have ever seen. He would smash bottles on his head. He would do all kinds of crazy stuff. He was just insane. He was a maniac, and he was thrash. He was just like the embodiment of thrash, the personification of thrash metal.
Apparently, he would go around with hedge clippers and clip the frills off of the glam metal guys like jackets.
I mean, if that's not metal, I don't know what it is. He was all about killing posers, and he even lived in the wilderness with like a gray wolf by his side. I mean, if that's not metal, I don't know what is.
Yeah, and again, this album is just flawless. Like
Gary Holt's one of my favorite guitarist.
Gary Holt is my favorite guitarist. He's
great choice. He's definitely in my
so
top 5.
good. His riffs are so insane. With Slayer,
so memorable. He never runs out of ideas.
No.
And then they had Rob McKillop on bass in this album and Tom Hunting on drums. I think he's back now. I think he's back in the band.
He is.
He actually used to do the vocals too. Fun fact.
I met Tom Hunting.
Trivia.
Super cool dude.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Super cool.
Hell of a drummer.
Absolutely.
And this is back when they had Rick Hunolt on second guitar. And
before they got Lee Altus.
Yeah, Lee Altus is really great too.
I
But
love Lee Altus.
I prefer Rick Hunt by a hair.
Yeah.
It's a close
See,
one.
for me, I think I like Lee Altus a little more because of Heathen. I love Heathen as well.
I can see
that. Like having Gary Holt and Lee Altus in one band is really cool. Yeah. But yeah, Bonded by Blood.
Bonded by Blood had to be my number one. It couldn't be any other. And again, screw this cover, man.
So, there's only one album in thrash metal that I think is better than Bonded by Blood. And you guys have heard me talk about this album way too much, or this band in general way too much.
We're going to talk about it some more.
But I don't care. This is Tortured Existence by Demolition Hammer, and it is the greatest thrash album, potentially the greatest album ever made by any band under any genre. I don't care what you think.
I can agree with that.
It
better than
is
Leprosy by Death?
so good. It's up there. Like I said in our top 10 albums video. Yeah. Remember, I was talking about how those albums were like neck and neck for me.
Teeter-tottered between the number one spot.
Yeah, like for me, Leprosy is probably my favorite album ever. I think
can't go wrong with either one
by like the smallest margin. But this album to me is also completely flawless. It is so good. Demolition Hammer deserves so much more like notoriety than they have. They are so good. They put out 2 incredible thrash albums with Tortured Existence and Epidemic of Violence.
It's my favorite.
And then their drummer passed away due to blowfish poisoning. Actually,
it sucks.
And then they got a different drummer, and they made a groove metal album.
They only had like 3 albums.
Yeah, they only had 3 albums. Yeah. They made a groove metal album, which is also actually really good, too. But out of all these, Tortured Existence is my favorite. The cover is brutal. It's like a guy's face melting away, and his like hands
so
like
violent,
dissolving.
So sick. Perfect for thrash metal.
And it embodies what this album is. This album, it's so insanely heavy.
Very aggressive.
And it's in standard tuning. Like, it shows you that you don't need to down tune to be heavy. It's about the riffs. It's about the songwriting. It's about everything coming together as a cohesive unit, and that's what this album does as a whole, is a cohesive masterpiece of pure brutality.
Thrashterpiece.
Everything about it is perfect. Some people refer to this album as medical metal because it's so, like, medically ridiculous, like the song "Infectious Hospital Waste," for instance.
Great arrangements.
It's insane. Absolutely. Like they have
best I've ever heard.
Neanderthal, which is literally about a caveman like fighting off like woolly mammoths and saber-toothed tigers.
How metal is that?
Yeah, it opens up with 44.
I dare you to come up with something more metal than
exactly. And if you thought that wasn't metal enough, it opens up with 44 caliber brain surgery, which might be the most metal song title.
If that song doesn't kick you in the balls, there's something wrong with
it. It's so good. I think my personal favorite song on the album would be Gelid Remains, because when the vocals come in, it kicks in with probably the heaviest riff I've ever heard in my life. It's insanity, pure violence to its core. And it doesn't relent the entire album. It will grab you by the throat and punch you in the face until it ends, and that's the best possible thing I can say about a thrash album.
They're definitely one of the heaviest thrash bands I've ever heard.
Without a doubt.
I think they're a little underrated. They're kind of overlooked.
100%.
I don't think they get the praise. They don't get the recognition they deserve it. Maybe it's because they don't have very many albums, but gosh, those first 2 albums are just like
so good.
Sheer greatness.
And their albums are very hard to find. And I mean very hard to find. However, they did put out a collection disc called the Necrology, which has all 3 of their albums, as well as some unreleased tracks and demo versions of some of their early songs, which is really cool. I would say get your hands on that if you can, because then you can get their entire catalog with extra stuff for one price, which is very nice, as opposed to looking for these like early pressings of like Tortured Existence and Epidemic of Violence, which are going to cost you an arm and a leg because they're a really, again, underappreciated band, and there's not that many of the albums out there. So, definitely, if you're going to find it, just look for the Necrology, get that, listen to it until your ears bleed.
It's probably the wisest way to get all their
so good. I'm trying to think of, like, elegant ways to put this album, and I just can't. It's just, it's beyond words. It is just such a killer album from start to finish, and I mean, it never lets go. It grabs you and never lets go. And that's like the highest praise I could possibly give.
It's not a forgettable track on the album.
No, not and not only is there not a forgettable track, every track is a masterpiece, much like Bonded by Blood. Every track is like the best song on the album. It's ridiculous. It's insane. It's so good.
Oh, yeah.
Listen to it. I'll leave it at that.
For sure.
All right, guys.
All right, guys. Well, I hope you liked our list. I'm kind of glad that my choices were like a little more obvious, a little more like well known. His were like a little more obscure and like kind of lesser known, which is good because we got the best of both worlds.
Absolutely.
And kind of more variety. So
that's what I was hoping for. I was hoping we could kind of get in all those things. Because every album on your list was in my big list that I had to.
Every album we named, chances are your favorite albums are we name dropped them at least.
Yeah.
But feel free to let us know your top 5 or even top 10 favorite thrash metal albums in the comments below.
Old school
please share with us
albums.
that. Yeah, from the 80s, And well, I guess that about does it.
Absolutely. I've been Dr. Gutts.
I'm Hellhound.
Thank you for watching Into the Pit. Keep it metal.